Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back here to today's edition of Advanced Bass Fishing, and really appreciate you guys coming by the channel to check today's video out. Always appreciate that. And guys, today I want to have a talk what the difference is between what is called a search lure and the best lure to catch the fish on, because you have to have both in fishing. It's like when you're trying to locate bass and trying to find bass, there are certain lure categories out there that allow you to search for those fish, and that may not be the best lure to use, but they're the best lures to find fish with. And then you can come back through those same type of areas with different lures and actually catch the fish better. So we're gonna sort of go through the process here on a sort of a more advanced level, sort of give you guys how I like to approach it when I'm looking for fish on a new body of water. Also, guys, just real quick, I want to invite everybody to please consider subscribing here to the Advanced Bass Fishing channel. We're really working hard, try to get up to 10,000 subscribers right now. We're not very far from it. So if you guys could hit that subscribe button, that'd really help things out. And also, guys, I don't know if you've heard about it, but I've started up my on the water lessons again. So anyone interested in booking an on the water lesson with me, just go to my Facebook page, Randy Blaukat, Professional Angler. Shoot me a private message and I'll give you some info for that. And one final thing, guys, please check out my Fish the Moment, my Tackle Warehouse Black Friday sale link. Really good deals on tackle going on at Tackle Warehouse now. Link in the description. If you guys use that link, it's a good way to help advance bass fishing. So thank you very much with that. Okay, in bass fishing, it's one of those things, you always hear me talk about this. It's such a complicated sport because it is. And when you're talking about locating fish, and I'm talking about locating fish non-live scope means, because live scope locates the fish for you, and traditional bass fishing, which is real bass fishing and how bass fishing should be, you are the angler and you are locating the fish. And that process comes through time on the water, experimentation, creativity, and basically you're just hunting for fish. So there's two different elements involved here. It's like when you're out on the lake and you're looking to locate fish. Say you get out there, you haven't caught any fish yet, and you're just starting your day out. You've got some things in mind about, areas you want to fish. Now, when you get to the area that you've decided to fish, which is another topic for another video, you have to determine, first of all, if there's any fish there. You really don't know how many fish are there. Yeah, possibly if you can see them on your electronics, that's one thing. But let's say, for example, you go down a typical bass fishing lake where you got lay down trees in the water, or rocky banks, or lily pad fields, or boat docks, or whatever. You don't really know if there's fish there, or you don't know how many bass are there. So the first thing you have to do is you have to get that first bite. First bite is so critical because it points you in the right direction as far as, the area you're fishing and the technique you're using. And one of the things that you have to do when you're trying to look for bass and you're trying to search for bass is you have to determine what lure is going to allow you to most effectively cover the area the quickest. Now, every area is not like that, because say, for example, if you're fishing down a thick row of flooded bushes or a thick row of cattails or some heavy vegetation, you can't fish fast through that. There's too much cover there. So in a situation like that, that's going to dictate one particular technique. But if you're fishing more of an open water situation, say you're going down a long stretch of riprap or a rocky bank or a bluff bank or the outside edge of a grass line or over a big vast flat, you can kick it up a notch and you can speed up a little bit. So let's talk about the type of cover here as far as that a lot of people fish, and it's a really good piece of cover. One of my favorite places to fish, and that's riprap banks. Guys, I love riprap, and I don't like it because, I love fishing it because the bass love it and the bass use it 12 months out of the year, but it gets a lot of fishing pressure. So every single riprap, there's usually key areas within that riprap where the fish are going to be, and those are obvious areas. Those are like, points, little irregular features, but the good thing about riprap is you can catch them literally anywhere along the length of a riprap. So when I approach a riprap, the first thing that I have to do is I want to find out if there's any bass using it or how many bass are using it. So if I get on a long stretch of riprap or even a long stretch of rocky bank, my first thing is going to do is I'm going to try to cover some water, to try to cover as much as that riprap if I can quickly, and therefore I'm using some type of a moving bait, possibly a spinner bait in the top water under certain conditions, maybe a crankbait under certain conditions. But when you have a bank that's really uniform and a long way out there, it's really hard to locate and find fish right off the bat if you slow down like a snail with a jig or shaky head. So when I'm fishing these search baits, like say for example I'm throwing a crankbait or a spinner bait on a riprap, I know it's probably not the best lure, and I know it's probably not the lure that's going to catch me the most fish or the biggest fish, but I'm only looking for one. I'm only looking for one bite. And once I get that bite, let's say I go down I pull this long stretch of riprap, and let's say it's a quarter mile long, and I catch a 2-pound bass on a crankbait, like the first 30 feet I start working, and then I go forever without a bite, and then I catch another one like down towards the end of the riprap on a crankbait too. That tells me that there's some bass using this entire length of that riprap, even if they didn't bite the crankbait. So the next thing that I'm going to do with that is I'm going to put down that search bait, which was the crankbait, and I'm going to go with a more of a subtle, natural, slower presentation to really try to get a feel and an understanding about the mood and the personality of the fish and how many bass are really there. So I may go back down through the key areas there. Let's say instead of going down through the whole area, I'll go to the 2 areas where I caught those fish on the search bait, and I'll slow down. I'll throw me a Ned rig, I'll throw a shaky head, I'll throw a finesse jig, and really, really pick apart that area where I got the bites at. Now, a lot of times, you're gonna pick up more fish with what I call the catching bait. The catching bait is usually gonna be your slow bait. So if I catch, say for example, if I catch 2 or 3 fish on the catching bait after only getting one on the crankbait, I'm going to work that entire riprap with the catching bait, fishing really, really slow. So that's a good example of a search bait versus, a catching bait. Now, let's say, for example, you got a different scenario where you're fishing thick cover. And say I'm down in Florida and I'm fishing a really thick line of cattails or reeds or buggy whips or bulrushes or whatever, and you can't throw a crankbait, you can't throw a topwater, you can't throw a spinnerbait because it's too thick. You've got to penetrate that cover, with some type of a larger bait that will get in there that's weedless. So the search bait that I'm looking for in a thick piece of cover, now this could be, like I said, if grass or wheat reeds in Florida, it could be flooded bushes if you're fishing Sam Rayburn in Texas. It could be, a line of shoreline that's got lay down trees all over it, like fall down, blow down trees. Thick cover that you're pitching and flipping, into the middle of. My search bait in a situation like that and my catching bait are both going to be slow baits, but the difference is my search bait is going to be a faster falling, more aggressive lure. So I may start out with my search bait with like a 1/2 ounce jig because I can get that bait in there, it falls to the bottom real quick, and I can get it out, I can make another pitch, and I can cover a lot of water. Now, the same thing is true. Let's say, for example, I catch one on that big jig right off the bat on a row of blow-down trees, and then I go down another 100 yards of blow-down trees without a bite, and then I get another one at the end. The same thing's going to happen. I'm going to go back through that bait with what I consider the catching bait, which is going to be maybe a Texas rig worm or a Texas rig creature bait or a Cinco or maybe a downsized jig, a lighter weight jig, like a 1/4 ounce jig. Something that is going to enable me to slow down a little bit more and offer those fish a little bit more of an option as far as colors and weight goes. So it's all relative to the type of cover that you're fishing. And it's never just a matter of, search bait is going to be a fast moving bait and a, feeding bait is going to be a slow bait. I mean, it can be either or. Sometimes you can be throwing a football head jig or a shaky head as your search bait, and then your actual best fishing bait may be burning a deep diving crankbait through there. But the point is once you've located some fish with your search bait, then you can go back through and you can experiment and figure out what actually the best lure is for that time to catch the most fish on. And again, it has to do with a lot of variables. It has to do with the mood and the personality of the fish. It has to do with your light intensity, the cloud cover you have, the amount of wind that you have. All those variables are going to, change the scenario. Like I said, it just depends, because every single day is going to be different on what those fish prefer. But the main thing is, when you go out on a lake and you're looking for fish, guys, you have to start out normally with the bait that's going to allow you to most efficiently cover the most water the quickest. And that's your starting point. And then once you find a fish or two, then you can make some adjustments and slow down and, do whatever you want to do. Let me give you another prime example. I was fishing a Bassmaster Top 100 tournament down at the Hudson River up in New York years ago. I almost won this tournament. I finished third in it and only missed winning by like a pound. But what I was doing is, my search bait was an old Johnson spoon, and I was throwing this Johnson spoon over flooded vegetation as my search bait, and the fish would hit it, and 9 times out of 10 they'd miss it. They'd blow up on it, and I wouldn't get them. Once in a while I'd catch one, but what I would do is I'd pitch a Texas rig craw in as my catching bait behind the Johnson spoon that was my search bait, and that's how it's done. So that's just sort of that's my approach with it like that. It's like, sometimes you get it dialed on too. Sometimes if you know the lake a little bit and you understand the lake, you can go right to the catching bait right off the bat. But a lot of times that doesn't work very good. So a lot of times you just have to figure them out the quickest way you can. So anyway, guys, hope it helps you out a little bit, and we'll talk later.